I stood clad in my dress uniform, my hands trembling uncontrollably, making it impossible to fasten my jacket. As my daughter's casket descended into the earth, my mind fixated solely on her radiant smile. Then he appeared. Victor, a man utterly unknown to me until that precise moment, proceeded to commit an act at my daughter's funeral that transcended mere insult. It was an outright declaration of war. In that instant, the pursuit of justice became irrelevant. Only vengeance held any meaning. Remember to like this video, subscribe for more tales of betrayal, and share your city or country in the comments below. That November afternoon, the cemetery air was piercingly cold. Not merely a chill, but a deep, pervasive cold that penetrated to the very bones, erasing all memory of warmth. I had endured desert storms in Afghanistan, survived ambushes in Yemen, and grieved fallen comrades in combat. Yet absolutely nothing had prepared me for the agony of burying my own child. Her name was Tessa. She was 26 years old, and now she was gone. I distinctly recall the funeral director's solemn query, asking if I wished to speak. My sister Harper instinctively gripped my arm, understanding my inability to do so. I was barely capable of standing. My ex-wife, Giselle, stood on the opposite side of the casket, mascara streaking her face. We hadn't exchanged a word in 5 years except through legal counsel, but in that moment we were simply two individuals who had crafted something beautiful, only to witness it brutally snatched away. The priest concluded his eulogy, but his words seemed to vanish unheard. My thoughts were consumed by Tessa's last text message, sent 3 weeks before her death. "Dad, I need to tell you something important. I'm scared, but I need your help." I never had the chance to reply. She died in what police officially labeled a car accident on the interstate. 1 second of lost control, they stated. 1 solitary second, and she was gone. But I harbored a deeper certainty, a primal instinct deep within me. The same gut feeling that had sustained me through 2 decades of military service screamed that this was no accident. As her casket was lowered, I stood at the grave's edge, my hand resting protectively on my service dog, Rex. He was my unwavering anchor. Since my retirement from the SEALs 5 years prior, Rex had become my primary motivation to face most mornings. He was meticulously trained to discern my anxiety, my fury, my imminent collapse. And at this very moment, he pressed his body against my leg, sensing that I was on the brink of shattering. It was then that I first noticed him, a man clad in an impeccably tailored, expensive black coat, eschewing a tie and sporting designer sunglasses despite the overcast sky. He lingered at the far reaches of the cemetery, not mingling with the grieving attendees, but distinctly separate, merely observing. His presence felt abhorrent, like a predator wandering into a hallowed space. I had spent 20 years honing my ability to decipher people's true intentions, and this man's intentions were starkly, violently etched across his face. I didn't know who he was, but I intuitively knew he didn't belong there. He waited patiently until the casket was fully interred. He waited until the priest uttered "Amen," and people began dispersing towards their vehicles. Only then did he begin to advance towards me. His 2 bodyguards remained at a distance, but he approached alone, his footsteps rustling the fallen leaves. "Mason," he articulated. He knew my name. "I'm Victor C.S." I did not extend my hand. I offered no verbal response. The name held no significance to me then. I simply met his gaze, and he returned mine. In that precise instant, I felt Rex tense beside me. My dog possessed an uncanny ability to perceive danger, much like most people sense an approaching storm. "Your daughter," Victor proceeded, "was involved in something she shouldn't have been involved in. She made choices that had consequences." My fists involuntarily clenched. "Who the hell are you?" "Someone who's here to pay my respects," he calmly replied. Then he delivered a smile, the kind of smile worn by a man who had never once been denied in his life. "And to ensure you understand something, Before I could react, before my ingrained military training could even process the unfolding events, Victor stooped down and seized Rex by the collar. My dog attempted to recoil, but Victor maintained an unyielding grip. Then, with a sickening twist, he wrenched Rex's paw in a manner that elicited a pained yelp, a sound I had never heard from him before. "Stop!" I lunged forward, but his bodyguards materialized instantaneously, and I felt the chilling press of a gun barrel against my ribs. "Your daughter thought she could leave me," Victor stated, still holding Rex's paw, twisting it just slightly more. Rex was whimpering now, utterly bewildered and in profound pain. "Your daughter thought she could talk to people she shouldn't talk to, and your daughter paid the price for that stupidity." Harper was screaming. Other mourners recoiled, some fumbling for their phones, yet no one dared to intervene. Fear holds people captive. "Let him go," I commanded, my voice unnervingly quiet and controlled, a tone that even startled me. Victor released Rex and straightened up. My dog limped back to me, trembling, his paw held aloft. I could faintly discern the imprints of Victor's fingers on his fur. "That was a gift," Victor declared. "A little reminder. Your daughter's dead because of choices she made. And if you make the same choices, if you start asking questions about her, about me, about anything, then next time it won't be your dog, it'll be your sister. Understand?" He departed before I could formulate a response. His bodyguards shattered him to a black Mercedes idling near the cemetery gate. Within seconds, he was gone. I remained standing at my daughter's grave, my wounded dog at my side, encircled by strangers too terrified to meet my gaze. Something fundamental within me shattered completely. Not grief, I was already submerged in that. This was something different. This was absolute clarity. This man possessed knowledge concerning Tessa's death. This man had deliberately harmed my dog. This man had the unmitigated audacity to appear at my daughter's funeral and blatantly threaten me, and I was going to utterly destroy him. I had no clear idea how. I had no knowledge of his identity or the extent of his power. But in that moment, standing over Tessa's open grave with my loyal dog trembling beside me, I made a resolute decision that would irrevocably alter everything. I was going to unearth the truth about my daughter's demise, and whoever was responsible, regardless of their power or connections, would pay. Not through legal proceedings, not through abstract justice, but directly, through me. I sat in my apartment, Rex's head resting on my lap, when the call came through. The veterinarian had given him a clean bill of health. No permanent damage to his paw, merely bruising and soreness. Yet each time Rex stirred, I felt that familiar rage resurgence, that icy, controlled fury I hadn't experienced since my last deployment. "Is this Mason?" The voice on the other end was female, young, and trembled faintly. "Who is this?" "My name is Quinn Palmer. I was Tessa's roommate. I don't know if you know this, but I need to tell you something. I've been scared to say anything because of what happened to her. But after seeing that man at the funeral, I can't stay quiet anymore." I sat upright. Rex shifted, perceiving the change in my energy. "Tell me." "Victor C.S. didn't just know your daughter," Quinn explained, her voice dropping to a near whisper. "Mason, he owned her, like she was property. For the last 8 months of her life, Tessa was trapped in a relationship with him. And when she tried to leave, when she tried to go to the police, she stopped." I could hear her suppressed sobs on the other end. "When she tried to go to the police, what happened?" I pressed, even though a part of me already knew the answer. "She died in a car accident," Quinn whispered. "But it wasn't an accident. Mason, the police detective who investigated it, Detective Oliver, he told me to stop asking questions. He told me if I kept talking about Victor, something bad would happen to me, just like it happened to Tessa." I rose and walked to the window, my hands visibly shaking. "I need to see you in person, not over the phone." We arranged to meet at a coffee shop in downtown Seattle the following morning. Quinn was slight, appearing fragile, with profound dark circles beneath her eyes, suggesting she hadn't slept since Tessa's death. She repeatedly glanced over her shoulder, gripped by the terror that someone was observing us. "Start from the beginning," I instructed, maintaining a steady tone despite the profound turmoil within me. "Tell me everything." Quinn clasped her hands around her coffee cup as if trying to absorb its warmth. Tessa met Victor at a club 8 months ago. He was charming initially. Expensive dinners, flowers, lavish gifts. Within 2 weeks, he had moved into our apartment. Within a month, he had effectively isolated her from everyone, me, her friends, you. He claimed it was due to his profound love for her. But Mason, it was pure control, unadulterated control. "What kind of control?" I inquired. He would check her phone. He'd meticulously show up at events she said she'd attend solely to verify her presence. He'd erupt in anger if she merely smiled at other men. And he'd hurt her when she didn't comply. Quinn's eyes welled with tears. I saw bruises on her arms, on her neck. When I questioned her about them, she'd invent excuses, claim she fell, insist she was clumsy. But I knew the truth. My jaw tightened. "Why didn't you tell someone?" I tried. I pleaded with her to leave him, to report him to the police. But Mason, she was absolutely terrified. She stated that Victor had deep connections within the police department. She swore that if she attempted to leave, he would kill her. Then Quinn faltered, unable to continue. Then what? 3 weeks before she died, Tessa finally resolved to escape him. She'd been clandestinely saving money, meticulously planning her departure. She informed Victor she was going to visit her mother for a weekend, but instead, she went to the police armed with irrefutable evidence, recordings, text messages, photographs of her injuries. She divulged every detail about Victor's illicit operations, about the influential people he was connected to, about the illegal activities he was involved in. "What kind of things?" I leaned closer. "Money laundering, human trafficking, drug distribution, bribery of public officials." "Mason, Victor isn't just a common thug. He's intertwined with organized crime. He has judges in his pocket. He has police officers on his payroll." When Tessa approached the police, Detective Oliver took her statement, and then he went straight to Victor and divulged everything. The coffee cup in my hand shattered, hot liquid splashing across the table. Quinn flinched, but I barely registered the pain. 3 days later, Quinn continued, her voice barely a whisper, Tessa was found dead on the interstate. Her car had veered off the road and plunged into a ravine. The police dismissed it as an accident, attributing it to her falling asleep at the wheel, and closed the investigation within 48 hours. There was no toxicology report, no vehicle inspection, nothing. It was as if they intentionally avoided discovering the truth. "Where is your evidence?" I demanded. "The text messages, the recordings. Where are they?" "I have copies," Quinn replied, pulling out her phone. "But Mason, I'm terrified. After Tessa's death, Detective Oliver warned me to forget everything. He said if I spoke out, went to the media, or contacted another police department, the same fate that befell Tessa would be mine. So I have remained silent. But I can't anymore. I can't let him escape justice." She transferred the files to my phone. As I scrolled through the messages, Tessa's voice echoed in my mind, particularly her last text. "Dad, I need to tell you something important. I'm scared, but I need your help." I never had the chance to help her then, but I could help her now. "Why did Victor attend the funeral?" I inquired. Quinn looked perplexed. "What do you mean?" "He tortured my dog. He threatened me." "Why? Because you're asking questions?" a voice interjected from behind me. I turned to face a man in a suit, in his mid-50s, with weary eyes and a detective's badge. "Detective Oliver, and that," he added, brandishing his weapon, "is precisely the problem." The gun, though small, was lethal. Detective Oliver held it steady, his grip seasoned and calm. Quinn shrieked, drawing the attention of everyone in the coffee shop, but Oliver was unfazed. He had shed all pretense.
"Outside," he commanded, motioning with the barrel. "Both of you, slowly." My military training activated instantly. I surveyed the room. 8 customers, 2 baristas, with no clear exits except the front door and a back corridor near the kitchen. Oliver was positioned between us and the main entrance. A move from me would trigger a shot. Inaction meant he would take us somewhere private, leading to our disappearance. Just then, Rex stirred. My dog, usually docile and well-trained at my feet, reacted the moment he sensed the weapon and my heightened tension. Rex launched himself at Oliver, his 100-pound frame colliding with the detective's chest, sending him crashing backward into a table. The gun discharged, a thunderous sound in the confined space, and chaos erupted in the coffee shop. I seized Quinn and sprinted toward the kitchen. Behind us, I heard Oliver struggling with Rex, cursing and attempting to ward off the dog. A barista was already on the phone with 911. We had perhaps 2 minutes. "Come on," I urged, pulling Quinn through the kitchen and out the back door into an alley. We ran 3 blocks before I ushered her into a parking garage. My truck was on the 3rd level. I had parked it there strategically that morning, a premonition telling me this meeting might not be safe. We sped out of the garage just as police sirens began wailing in the distance, but these were not officers coming to our aid. These were Oliver's reinforcements, summoned to cover his tracks. "Where are we going?" Quinn asked, trembling uncontrollably. "Somewhere safe," I replied. "Somewhere off the grid." I drove for an hour, ensuring we weren't being followed. Then I contacted the only person I trusted, my old SEAL buddy, Adrian. Adrian had left the military 5 years prior to become a private investigator. If anyone could navigate this quagmire, it was he. We met at his office in Ballard, a modest, unmarked building above a Vietnamese restaurant. Adrian took one look at Quinn and me and asked no questions. He simply locked the door and brewed coffee. "Talk," he instructed. For the next 3 hours, I recounted everything. Quinn provided the corroborating evidence, recordings, text messages, photographs. Adrian listened, his expression growing grimmer with each revelation. "This is more extensive than I imagined," Adrian finally conceded, running his hands through his hair. "Oliver isn't merely a crooked cop. He's part of a broader network." He pulled up files on his computer, displaying a web of connections linking Victor, Detective Oliver, a federal judge named Harrison Cole, a city councilman named Preston Hayes, and several other officials. These individuals have been protecting each other for years. Money laundering, trafficking, racketeering. It's organized crime with a badge. "Can we go to the FBI?" Quinn inquired. Adrian shook his head. "Not yet. Oliver has already filed a report claiming you assaulted him in a coffee shop. There are security cameras he can manipulate. By tomorrow, you'll be wanted for assaulting a police officer. The FBI will apprehend you before they even hear your side of the story." "So what do we do?" I asked. "We build an ironclad case," Adrian asserted. "We gather evidence so conclusive that even Victor's connections can't shield him. We document everything. We find other victims. We locate witnesses willing to testify. And then we approach someone Victor cannot influence." "Who?" I asked. "A federal prosecutor," Adrian explained. "Someone outside the local corruption network. Someone who has been seeking an opportunity to dismantle organized crime in this city." Over the next 2 weeks, Adrian and I worked relentlessly. We interviewed victims of Victor's operation, women who had been trafficked, business owners subjected to extortion, and families devastated by his drug distribution network. Each narrative was more harrowing than the last. Quinn remained with us, terrified but resolute. She assisted in organizing the evidence, constructing a timeline of Tessa's relationship with Victor, her attempt to report him to the police, and her subsequent death. The pattern was unmistakable, the conclusion inescapable. Victor had orchestrated Tessa's death to silence her. One night, while reviewing security footage from the day Tessa died,
Adrian discovered something crucial. An interstate traffic camera had captured a black SUV forcing Tessa's car off the road. The driver was Evan Cross, Victor's younger brother and known associate. "We have him," Adrian stated quietly. "We have proof of murder." Just then, my phone rang. It was Harper, my sister. She was sobbing so uncontrollably she could barely speak. "Mason, someone set fire to my house. My family was inside. We barely escaped." The fire department confirmed it was arson.
My blood ran cold. "Is everyone okay?"
"Yes, but Mason, there was a message spray-painted on the front wall. It said, 'Stop looking, or next time, no one escapes.'" I hung up and looked at Adrian. He knows we're investigating. Victor knows everything. Adrian's jaw tightened. "Then we move swiftly. We go to the federal prosecutor now. We don't wait. We don't gather more evidence. We go now. And we hope they can protect us long enough to build the case." "And if they can't?" I questioned. Adrian offered no response. He didn't need to. We both understood what happened to those who challenged men like Victor. Quinn was pale, her hands trembling. "He's going to kill us, isn't he? Just like he killed Tessa." "No," I replied, my voice steady despite the fear surging through me. "Because we're not going to give him the chance. We're going to strike first. We're going to destroy him before he can destroy us." Yet, even as I spoke the words, I knew it would demand a price. Everything. And I was finally prepared to pay that price. Federal Prosecutor Nathaniel Cross sat opposite me in his downtown office, his expression inscrutable. He was younger than I anticipated, in his mid-40s, with the kind of weary intensity that comes from a prolonged, often fruitless battle against corruption. Adrian, Quinn, and I had arrived at his office with all our evidence, gambling our lives on whether this man would believe us. "This is good," Cross finally remarked, reviewing the evidence for the third time. "This is really good, but it's not enough." "Not enough?" I felt rage simmering within me. "We have recordings of Victor admitting to trafficking. We have security footage of the hit and run. We have Detective Oliver on tape threatening a witness." "Circumstantial," Cross said, not unkindly. "Victor will claim the recordings were tampered with. The footage is grainy. A skilled defense attorney will argue it's inconclusive. And Oliver will say Quinn misinterpreted his words, that he was offering her protection, not uttering a threat. We require direct testimony. We need someone within Victor's organization willing to testify against him." "And how do we achieve that?" Adrian asked. Cross leaned back in his chair. "Someone gets close to Victor, someone he trusts, someone who can record him confessing to Tessa's murder, to the trafficking, to the corruption, someone he won't see coming." I knew where this was headed. "You want me to wear a wire?" "I want you to go undercover," Cross confirmed. "Get arrested for something minor, nothing that will harm you long term, something that puts you into the system, into contact with Victor's people. You build a relationship, you earn their trust, and then you get Victor to confess." "That's suicide," Adrian declared immediately. "Victor will know. He'll sense something is wrong." "Perhaps," Cross conceded, "but we are out of options. Oliver has already issued a warrant for your arrest, Mason. You are a fugitive. If Victor finds you first, you're dead. If we don't act now, he wins. He always wins because the system is rigged in his favor." I thought of Tessa. I thought of Harper's family narrowly escaping the fire. I thought of all the other victims whose names I had learned over the past 2 weeks. Women with empty eyes, shattered families, erased futures. "I'll do it," I said. Adrian gripped my arm. "Mason, no. There has to be another way." "There isn't," I asserted, "and you know it." Cross nodded slowly. "I can arrange your arrest, drunk driving, aggravated assault, something that will land you in county detention. We'll ensure you end up in the same holding facility as one of Victor's known associates, a man named Colin Hartley. Colin has been with Victor for 8 years. If anyone has access to the inner circle, it's him." Over the next week, Cross meticulously arranged everything. I bade farewell to Harper, intentionally omitting my immediate intentions. Adrian took charge of Rex, as my faithful canine companion couldn't accompany me on this perilous journey. My next move involved deliberately instigating a confrontation within a Capitol Hill bar, an incident orchestrated by Cross. The ensuing arrest was genuine, the charges legitimate, and the dread that filled my chest as my rights were read was profoundly real. The county detention facility met all my expectations, cold, bleak, and permeated by the stench of despair. After processing, I was assigned a bunk and confined to a holding cell alongside 36 other men. I maintained a low profile, avoiding eye contact and conversation, until Colin Hartley singled me out. He was a tall, muscular individual, his arms adorned with prison tattoos, yet it was his eyes that truly captured my attention. Eyes that had witnessed and committed unspeakable acts, now calloused by acceptance. "You're the SEAL," Colin observed, settling beside me. "News travels quickly in here." "Mason, correct?" he probed.
The cop killer.
"I killed no one," I responded softly. "What you did or didn't do is irrelevant," Colin countered. "What matters is public perception, and currently the public regards you as a dangerous man. That makes you valuable." For the next 3 days, Colin subjected me to a series of tests. He assigned me tasks, initially minor, such as assisting with contraband movement or intimidating a fellow inmate. None of these actions carried severe repercussions, but each was designed to assess my fealty. I complied with every single request. "You're all right," Colin finally declared. "You're steadfast. I believe my boss might be interested in meeting you." At that moment, the dynamic shifted irrevocably. Victor arrived at the detention center, not to my cell, but to the visitation room, escorted by a guard clearly in his employ. Colin led me to the room, where Victor sat at a table, a vending machine coffee cup before him, exuding an air of ownership. "Mason," Victor greeted, a predatory smile once again gracing his lips. "I've been eager to speak with you." "I have nothing to say to you," I retorted. "But I have something to say to you," Victor persisted. "You see, I'm aware of your inquiries. I know you've been communicating with federal prosecutors. I'm aware you've been accumulating evidence against me." My heart seized. He knew. He knew everything. "How?" I began, but Victor interjected. "Detective Oliver is exceptionally thorough," Victor explained. "He revealed everything about Quinn, about your private investigator friend, about Prosecutor Cross." Victor leaned forward. "And I want you to grasp something, Mason. I want you to fully comprehend the forces you're up against. Your endeavor to dismantle my operations will fail because I control this system. I control the police. I control the judges. I control the prosecutors." "Then why are you here?" I questioned, maintaining a steady voice despite my racing thoughts. "Why bother speaking to me if you're so confident?" Victor's smile broadened. "Because I respect you. Because you are a warrior, and warriors comprehend power. And I'm offering you a choice. Collaborate with me. Help me expand my enterprises. Utilize your SEAL skills to my advantage, and I will make you unimaginably wealthy. Refuse, and I will ensure that everyone you cherish perishes slowly. Your sister, your private investigator, that woman, Quinn, and perhaps I'll resurrect your dog, just so you can witness his suffering, mirroring your daughter's." He rose. The visitation period had concluded. "Consider it," Victor said. "You have 48 hours to decide. Accept my proposition or bid farewell to all you hold dear." After his departure, Colin leaned in. "You must accept that deal, brother. Victor never extends offers twice, and when he issues threats, he fulfills them." That evening, alone in my cell, I pressed the panic button. Cross had provided this contingency for emergencies. A guard soon appeared, and I whispered my urgent need to contact my handler. Cross arrived within 2 hours. "He knows everything," I informed him. Oliver has divulged details about the investigation, about you, about our entire strategy. We're compromised." Cross remained silent for an extended period. Then he declared, "Then we proceed differently. We lead him to believe you are genuinely considering his offer. We arrange a meeting, we secure his confession on tape, and we do it before he can claim any more lives." "How?" I inquired. "You will meet with him," Cross stated,
"Tomorrow night, and you will wear a wire far more sophisticated than the last. This time, he won't discover it. And this time, we will record every single word he utters." I understood the implication. I was willingly stepping into the lion's den, with no guarantee of emerging. Cross facilitated my release from detention through a technicality, a discovered procedural error in my arrest. Within hours, I was back on the street, equipped with a wire so advanced that even a thorough body search would fail to detect it. The device was seamlessly embedded in a false dental crown, transmitting audio via a microphone meticulously woven into my jacket lining. "He will be cautious," Cross had cautioned me. "Don't push too aggressively. Allow him to lead the conversation." However, before I could confront Victor, I needed answers concerning one particular individual. I needed to unearth the truth about my ex-wife. I drove to Giselle's apartment, arriving unannounced. She resided in a high-rise downtown, an abode indicative of substantial wealth. The moment she opened the door, the truth was starkly etched on her face, even before she uttered a word. "Mason," she whispered, her hand trembling, "you shouldn't be here." "Why not?" I challenged, stepping inside. "Afraid Victor will discover his cash cow is receiving a visit from me?" Giselle's face paled. "What are you talking about?" "Quinn informed me," I stated. "She told me Tessa attempted to leave Victor. She told me Tessa reported him to the police, and then she died. What I couldn't comprehend was how Victor learned of it so swiftly, how Detective Oliver knew precisely when to intercept her, how the entire operation moved so seamlessly to silence her." I surveyed the apartment, the designer furniture, the art adorning the walls, the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. This wasn't built on a teacher's salary. This wasn't funded by a divorced mother's income. Until I realized, I continued, that someone close to Tessa must have betrayed her, someone she trusted, someone she loved. Giselle walked to the window, her back to me. "You don't comprehend what it's like, Mason. After you left the military, after you returned broken and constantly enraged, I yearned for stability. I yearned for security, and Victor offered that." "Victor offered money," I corrected, "and you accepted it, even when it meant witnessing our daughter fall prey to him." "I didn't know." Giselle turned to face me, tears streaming down her face. "I swear to God, Mason, I didn't know about Tessa and Victor until it was too late. By then, I was already too deeply entangled. He'd given me cash, settled my debts, established me with investments. And when Tessa told me what he was doing to her, when she declared her intention to go to the police—" "You told Victor," I finished. "I told him because he had leverage over me." Giselle's voice cracked. "He showed me pictures, Mason. Pictures of things he vowed to do to you, to Harper, to Tessa if I didn't keep him informed. He said if she went to the police, he would have to manage the situation. I thought he merely meant he would move her somewhere, make her vanish for a while. I never imagined." "You never imagined he'd kill her?" I said quietly. Giselle collapsed onto the sofa, her entire body racked with sobs. "I've been burdened by that guilt every single day since her death. Every single day. I wanted to go to the police, but he threatened to kill me if I did. So I've been living in this apartment, spending blood money, unable to face myself in the mirror. I should have felt fury. I should have felt revulsion, but all I experienced was profound sadness. A crushing, overwhelming sadness for a woman who had made catastrophic choices and was condemned to live with their consequences forever. "I'm wearing a wire," I informed her.
I'm meeting Victor tonight, and I'm going to secure his confession to Tessa's murder. When that happens, the federal government will require testimony. They will want you to testify about what Victor told you, about the money, about everything." Giselle looked at me, her eyes hollow. "He'll probably kill me," I conceded. "But at least Tessa will have justice. At least her death will signify something more than just another victim erased by a powerful man." Giselle was silent for a prolonged moment. Then she said, "I'll testify. I'll do whatever you need me to do, but Mason, be careful. Victor doesn't think like ordinary people. He isn't merely a criminal. He's a predator, and predators are most dangerous when they are cornered." I left her apartment and drove to the location Cross had designated. It was a warehouse in South Seattle, industrial and isolated, the perfect setting for the unfolding drama. Victor awaited inside, standing near a loading dock with Colin and 2 other unidentified men. Upon seeing me, he smiled.
"Mason," he greeted, extending his hand as he approached. "I had hoped you would come to your senses." I shook his hand, feeling the wire beneath my jacket, acutely aware that every word he was about to utter was being recorded. "I've been contemplating your offer," I said, "but I need to understand something first. Why Tessa? Why did she have to die?" Victor's expression remained unchanged, but a cold glint flickered in his eyes. "Because she was weak. Because she failed to grasp that once you are mine eternally. Because she believed she could betray me and walk away." "And you murdered her for that?" I pressed. "I had my brother Evan handle it," Victor said casually, as if discussing the weather. "A slight pressure on the accelerator, a subtle manipulation of the steering wheel. It was made to appear an accident. Your daughter never even realized what occurred. The wire was recording everything, every confession, every admission," Victor continued. "And do you know what the most exquisite part was? The police investigated it for approximately 5 seconds before Detective Oliver closed the case. No one questioned anything. No one cared, because in this city, I am the law." As I stood, the distinct sound of approaching vehicles outside confirmed my suspicions. Federal agents were making their move. Silence, immediate and profound, enveloped the room the moment Victor concluded his confession. The abrupt stillness registered with him instantly, his predatory instincts surfacing as his hand instinctively drifted towards his jacket. "We're finished here," I declared, taking a deliberate step back. Victor's gaze sharpened. "What did you—" Before he could complete his thought, the warehouse doors burst inwards. Federal agents, clad in tactical gear, poured through every entrance, their weapons drawn and ready. Victor had perhaps 2 fleeting seconds to process the unfolding scene before he was on the ground, handcuffed, completely surrounded by individuals whose sole purpose was his downfall. "Victor C.S., you are under arrest for murder, human trafficking, money laundering, and racketeering," an agent recited, reading him his rights. Yet Victor merely smiled. Even prostrate, with multiple firearms aimed at him, that smirk remained. "You believe this alters anything?" he challenged, his eyes locking with mine. "I possess lawyers. I possess judges. You possess nothing," Prosecutor Nathaniel Cross interjected, striding into the warehouse. He was transformed, no longer the weary bureaucrat confined to his office. He exuded a predatory intensity, focused, much like a hunter who has finally cornered his prey. "Everything you just uttered was recorded, every confession, every admission. Furthermore, we now have your brother, Evan, in custody. He is already cooperating, implicating you for ordering Tessa's murder." Victor's smile vanished. Over the ensuing 72 hours, the federal case against Victor solidified. Cross operated with surgical precision, coordinating efforts with the state police, the FBI, and various financial crimes units. Detective Oliver was apprehended at his home. Judge Harrison Cole was escorted from the courthouse in handcuffs. City Councilman Preston Hayes resigned just ahead of formal charges.
The entire corrupt network was beginning to unravel. I was transported to a safe house, an unassuming suburban dwelling where Adrian awaited me with Rex. Upon seeing me, my dog was overwhelmed with joy, practically bowling me over, his entire body vibrating with mingled relief and excitement. I embraced him tightly, burying my face in his fur, and for the first time in many weeks, I allowed myself to weep.
"We succeeded," Adrian remarked, resting a hand on my shoulder. "You succeeded."
"Not yet," I corrected. "The trial hasn't commenced. Victor's lawyers are already submitting motions. Cross informed me they are contending that the wire was illegal, my testimony inadmissible, and the evidence was secured via entrapment." "Will it succeed?" Adrian inquired. "I don't know," I admitted. "But Cross appears confident. He's been meticulously building this case for 5 years. He understands every possible angle." The following morning, Cross arrived at the safe house accompanied by Quinn. She appeared healthier than she had in weeks, the profound terror finally receding from her eyes. She'd been assigned a protection detail, and the federal government had agreed to finance her college education, a modest reward for the immense courage she displayed in coming forward. "We have a problem," Cross announced, settling at the kitchen table. "A significant one." "What is it?" I asked. "Giselle," Cross stated, "your ex-wife. She was scheduled to provide her statement this morning. She never appeared. We dispatched agents to her apartment, but she was gone. Cash withdrawn from her accounts. Her car gone, her phone turned off. She has vanished." Fear struck me with the force of a physical blow. Victor's people found her. "Perhaps," Cross conceded, "or perhaps she concluded that the cost of testifying was too high. Regardless, she is gone, and her testimony is crucial. Without her corroboration regarding the money transfers, regarding Victor's direct threats, we lose significant leverage on the financial crimes aspect." "So, what course of action do we take?" I inquired. "We proceed without her," Cross affirmed. "We possess the wire recording. We have Evan's testimony. We have Detective Oliver's communications clearly indicating he was on Victor's payroll. It is sufficient, but it will not be simple." The trial commenced 3 weeks later, instantly transforming into a media circus. News vans crowded outside the courthouse, reporters clamored with questions, and protesters displayed their signs. The case had become emblematic of the systemic issues surrounding organized crime's infiltration of government. The public watched intently. The eyes of the city were fixed upon Judge Nathaniel's courtroom. Victor's defense was brutal and relentless. They contended that I had fabricated the wire recording. They asserted that I harbored a vendetta against Victor due to my relationship with Giselle. They suggested that Evan was fabricating his testimony to protect himself. Every conceivable angle was attacked, yet the evidence remained overwhelming. The wire recording was authenticated by multiple forensic experts. Evan's testimony was precise and highly detailed. He described exactly how he had forced Tessa's car off the road, how Victor had instructed him to stage it as an accident, and their subsequent celebration. Detective Oliver's text messages clearly showed communication with Victor concerning payment for services rendered. Then, Adrian accomplished something entirely unexpected. He located Giselle. She had fled to a small town in Oregon, working as a bartender under an assumed identity. Adrian tracked her down and, through hours of conversation, convinced her to return. Eventually, she agreed. She came back to Seattle and walked into that courtroom, fully aware that it might cost her everything. Her testimony was devastating. She meticulously described the illicit money transfers, the threats Victor had made, and how he had manipulated her as a pawn to gain access to Tessa. She admitted her own culpability, her own complicity, and answered every question Cross posed with unsparing honesty. When Victor's lawyer cross-examined her, she remained steadfast. When he attempted to portray her as a jilted woman seeking revenge, she simply stated, "I am a mother who betrayed her daughter and must live with that reality forever. The least I can do is ensure that the man who killed her faces justice." By the time closing arguments arrived, the case was essentially concluded. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. Upon their return, their verdict was unanimous on every count. Guilty. Victor C.S. was sentenced to life without parole. His brother Evan received 30 years. Detective Oliver was sentenced to 20 years for corruption and obstruction of justice. Judge Cole and Councilman Hayes both pleaded guilty to lesser charges in exchange for their cooperation. The corrupt network that had plagued the city for years was finally dismantled. 3 months after Victor's conviction, I was in my apartment watching Rex sleep when Prosecutor Cross called. His voice was different, urgent, tight with tension. "We have a problem," he stated, "a significant one." "What?" I asked, already sensing the old dread resurfacing. Victor's appeal was denied, which is positive. However, during the appeal process, we uncovered something. There's another individual involved in Tessa's death, someone we overlooked, someone higher up the chain than Victor. I sat upright. Who? We're not certain yet, Cross admitted. But the financial records reveal payments entering Victor's account from someone with considerable power, federal power. We are talking about an individual connected to the government, someone with access to resources that far exceed those of local organized crime. Over the next 2 weeks, Cross and a joint FBI task force delved deeper. What they unearthed was chilling. The money trail led directly to a retired federal agent named Harrison Blake, a man who had dedicated 30 years to the Bureau and had retired 5 years prior with full honors and a faultless record. Yet his retirement had been suspicious. He had departed suddenly without the usual fanfare, and within months of his departure, he had amassed unexplained wealth. Blake was orchestrating the operation, Cross explained during a briefing at his office. Victor was merely his street-level enforcer. Blake maintained connections at every level of government, local, state, federal. He was utilizing organized crime as a front for rogue intelligence operations. Human trafficking networks were repurposed as intelligence assets. Money laundering funded black operations. Tessa was not killed because she threatened Victor. She was killed because she inadvertently stumbled upon Blake's operation. How? I pressed. She was romantically involved with an individual who worked for Blake, Cross clarified. A young man named Julian Marks. Julian was a field operative and made the critical error of introducing Tessa into his world. When she discovered what Julian was involved in, when she threatened to expose him, Blake ordered her death. Victor was simply the instrument. I felt the ground shift beneath me. This revelation extended far beyond mere organized crime. This was about corruption at the highest echelons of the federal government. This was about the very system designed to protect people like Tessa betraying her instead. "What do we do?" I asked. "We pursue Blake," Cross declared, "but this time it will be different. Blake possesses resources we cannot match. He has connections we cannot sever, and he knows we are searching for him." It was then that Cross proposed something that utterly terrified me. "We will establish a trap," he elaborated. "We will make Blake believe you are for sale. We will let him know you possess information that could severely jeopardize him. We will arrange a meeting and record everything." It was the same strategy that had succeeded with Victor, but Blake was no common thug. He was a highly trained federal agent with decades of experience in deception, manipulation, and survival. Nevertheless, I agreed. Cross orchestrated the meeting through intermediaries, individuals Blake trusted. The message was straightforward. Mason possessed evidence capable of dismantling Blake's entire operation, and he was willing to sell it. The price was $5 million and secure passage out of the country. Blake consented to the meeting. The chosen location was a parking garage in Tacoma, neutral ground, sufficiently public that Blake would avoid any overtly dramatic actions, yet private enough to ensure our recording would not be disrupted. I wore the wire again, this time a more advanced model. Blake was waiting on the 3rd level, standing beside a black Mercedes. He appeared to be in his 60s, with graying hair, dressed in an expensive suit that likely cost more than my truck. He looked precisely what he was, a man who had spent his entire life wielding power and harbored no intention of relinquishing it. "Mason," Blake said, extending his hand. "Your reputation precedes you." The takedown of Victor was remarkably impressive, despite its messy execution. "I have no interest in pleasantries," I stated, deliberately not extending my hand. "I possess crucial information. You possess ample funds. That is the solitary connection we require." Blake's lips curved into a smile, disturbingly reminiscent of Victor's. It was the predatory grin of someone entirely unacquainted with genuine opposition. "Allow me to enlighten you about the information you believe you hold," Blake began. "It is entirely inconsequential. Whatever you may have unearthed, I can bury it. I can arrange for your arrest on perjury charges. I can ensure your entire case is dismissed. I can simply make your testimony vanish." "How?" I inquired, my voice holding an unwavering steadiness. "Because I control the judiciary," Blake revealed with casual confidence. "I control the federal prosecutors. I control the FBI field offices. I dedicated 30 years to cultivating relationships with influential figures. These relationships don't simply dissolve because I've retired. In fact, they've become even more potent now that I operate from the periphery. I command access to entirely unaccountable resources." "Then why agree to meet with me?" I pressed. Blake's demeanor stiffened. "Because you're becoming a hindrance. Because you are delving into inquiries about Julian Marks. Because you are dangerously close to realizing that Tessa's death was sanctioned at a level far exceeding Victor C.S. And because I desire for you to fully comprehend the gravity of your situation before I orchestrate your elimination." His words hung in the air, a chilling death sentence. "You murdered Tessa," I declared, my statement devoid of any interrogative inflection. "I ordered her death," Blake corrected, his tone devoid of remorse. "And I would do so again. She was a liability. Julian grew careless, allowed himself to become emotionally entangled. Her removal was imperative. It was a necessary operation." "She was a person," I countered, a slight tremor in my voice. "She was my daughter, and she is gone," Blake stated impassively. "And nothing you do will alter that reality. So this is how events will unfold. You will disengage from this investigation. You will cease your inquiries. You will return to your tranquil life with your dog, and in exchange, I will permit you to live. It is a level of mercy you hardly deserve." From somewhere beyond the confines of the parking garage, I detected the distinct sound of vehicles meticulously positioning themselves, federal agents surrounding the structure, awaiting their signal. "I am finished allowing individuals like you to dictate my path," I asserted. "I am finished observing murderers walk free, and I am finished being afraid." Blake's hand instinctively moved towards his jacket, but before he could retrieve his weapon, the parking garage doors burst open, and federal agents flooded in, their weapons drawn. "Harrison Blake, you are under arrest," an agent's voice boomed. Blake's face contorted with fury. "You have no comprehension of what you have unleashed, Mason. No understanding of the forces you have awakened." Blake's arrest should have marked the conclusion, but instead it signaled the genesis of something far more perilous. Within 48 hours of Blake being taken into federal custody, the carefully constructed edifice began to crumble. A crucial piece of evidence from Blake's case, hard drives containing financial records, communication logs, and everything else, inexplicably vanished from an FBI field office in Seattle. The judge, slated to preside over Blake's preliminary hearing, recused himself, citing a conflict of interest. And most harrowing of all, Adrian disappeared. I received the news through Cross, whose voice trembled with barely suppressed rage. "Adrian has been shot," he informed me. 2 bullets to the chest. He's at Swedish Medical Center. He's alive, but barely."
I drove there like a man possessed, disregarding every red light, my hands quivering on the steering wheel. Adrian lay in the ICU, tubes snaking from his arms and nose, monitors maintaining a steady beep. His sister was present, and upon seeing me, she dissolved into fresh tears. "He went to interview a witness this morning," she explained, referring to a woman who had worked at one of Blake's shell companies. "When he returned to his car, someone was waiting. They shot him and left him bleeding in the parking lot. If a nurse hadn't been leaving the hospital and heard the gunshots, he would be dead." I sat beside Adrian's bed, clutching his hand. "Who did this?" I whispered, even though I already knew the answer. Blake's network was retaliating. Blake was incarcerated, yet his operatives remained active. They were still exceptionally dangerous. "We need to relocate you," Cross advised when I called him. "Blake's people know who you are. They know where you reside. They are targeting everyone connected to this case." "What about Giselle?" I inquired. A telling pause stretched across the line, revealing everything I needed to know. "We cannot locate her," Cross admitted quietly. "She was scheduled to check in with her protection detail this morning. She never appeared. Her safe house was empty. No signs of a struggle, but her car is gone." A primal fear seized me. I had inadvertently imperiled Giselle. By persuading her to testify, by drawing her back into this, I had made her a target. "And Quinn?" I asked. "Quinn is secure," Cross assured me. "She is in a federal facility. Blake's people cannot reach her there." "But Mason, we are losing control of this situation. Blake possesses assets we were unaware of. He is calling in favors from individuals beyond our reach. We will lose this case unless we unmask the mole." "The mole?" I reiterated. "There is someone within the federal investigation feeding Blake information," Cross elaborated. "Someone with access to our operations, our safe houses, our witness locations. That is how they located Giselle. That is how they knew Adrian's whereabouts. There is a traitor in our midst, and we don't know who it is." Over the subsequent week, the net progressively tightened. 2 additional witnesses who had agreed to testify retracted their statements, claiming they had been threatened. A federal agent assigned to Blake's case was discovered deceased in his apartment, his death ruled a suicide by local police. But Cross and I both harbored a different conviction. And then my sister called. "Mason, someone came to my house," Harper said, her voice laced with terror. "They didn't harm me or the children, but they left a message. They said, 'If you don't abandon this, they are returning, and next time they won't be so merciful.'" I swiftly transported Harper and her family to the federal safe house where Cross was orchestrating the investigation. He had established a command center in an unassuming downtown office building surrounded by agents he implicitly trusted. Cross had undergone a transformation. He'd ceased being merely a prosecutor and had become a soldier, battling Blake with the same ferocity Blake demonstrated in his counteroffensive. "We must find the mole," I emphasized. "It's the sole means of stopping this." Cross nodded gravely. "I concur, and I believe I have a method. We will set a trap. We will introduce false information into the system, information Blake will undoubtedly act upon. When his operatives make their move, we will identify the source of their intelligence." The trap, though simple, proved remarkably effective. Cross informed the investigation team that we had located Giselle in a small motel on the outskirts of Olympia, ensuring the information was entered into the federal database. Then we waited. 3 hours later, a team of armed men raided that motel, but we were prepared. Federal agents were strategically positioned in every room, and when Blake's people attempted to escape, we apprehended them. One of them was wearing a wire, a device that led back to Detective Harrison Vale, a federal agent who had been with the investigation from its inception. Vale confessed almost immediately. Blake possessed blackmail material on him, photographs of an affair with a subordinate, evidence of prior corruption. Blake had threatened to expose everything unless Vale provided intelligence. Vale had supplied Blake with every detail: safe house locations, witness statements, investigation timelines,
everything. But there was something more, something profoundly disturbing. Blake has operatives at the federal level, Vale admitted during his interrogation.
Individuals whose names I do not know, individuals who report directly to him. They are not corrupt in the same manner I was corrupt. They are ideologically aligned with him. They believe in his vision for what the government should be. They believe he is a patriot. Cross glanced at me, and I could see the dawning realization on his face. This was not merely the actions of a single rogue agent. This was a broader conspiracy. Blake had constructed something that extended far beyond his arrest. He had created a network of true believers who would continue his work regardless of his incarceration. "We need to find Giselle," I declared. "We need to find her and bring her in before they do." We located her 3 days later in a small town in Northern California, working in a diner under yet another assumed name. She was gaunt, hollow-eyed, living in a constant state of terror. When we returned her to Seattle, she was broken in a way that transcended mere fear. "They came to my motel room," she recounted to Cross. "They didn't threaten me, they simply showed me pictures. Pictures of what had happened to other women who testified against Blake. They left the pictures on my bed and then departed, and I understood what would happen to me if I continued." "Are you willing to testify?" Cross asked gently. Giselle looked at me. "If I do, they will kill me. You know that, right? They will make it look like an accident or a suicide, but they will kill me." "Perhaps," I conceded. "But if you don't, they will kill others. They will continue to harm people. They will continue to triumph." Giselle closed her eyes. "I am already dead," she whispered. "I died the moment I betrayed Tessa. Everything after that is simply existence." She agreed to testify again, but this time we understood the stakes were immeasurably higher. Detective Harrison Vale's confession unveiled the door we hadn't anticipated walking through. Cross and I sat in the interrogation room as Vale described Blake's network, not just those on Blake's payroll, but the true believers, the ideologues, the individuals convinced Blake was fighting for a righteous cause. "There is someone higher than me," Vale revealed, his voice hollow. "Someone inside the federal prosecutor's office. Someone with genuine power." Blake had never disclosed their identity, but referred to them as the architect, the individual who orchestrated everything. The full scope of the trafficking operations and the intricate intelligence schemes, all of it, ultimately led back to Blake. Cross's face visibly paled. He rose abruptly, exiting the interrogation room without a single word. I shadowed him into the hallway. "It could be anyone in my office," he stated, his voice hushed. "Anyone I've collaborated with for the past 5 years. Anyone I've entrusted with confidential information." "Then we find them," I responded firmly. What transpired next was a meticulous and unsettling process. Cross embarked on a comprehensive review of every case he had handled over the preceding decade. He meticulously searched for recurring patterns of interference, unexplained delays, missing evidence, and convictions that had been mysteriously overturned on appeal. The pattern emerged subtly at first, then with disquieting clarity. Someone had been systematically sabotaging significant prosecutions. Someone had been shielding criminals, motivated by a desire for money, ideology, or power. Cross enlisted an internal affairs team from the FBI. They conducted interviews, scrutinized communications, and analyzed financial records. After 6 days of relentless investigation, they finally uncovered the truth. A series of encrypted messages exchanged over 8 years between a federal prosecutor named Julian Mastersonson and Blake. Julian Mastersonson, Cross's second chair, his trusted confidant, the very man who had helped him construct this case. When Mastersonson was brought in for questioning, he offered no denials. He settled opposite Cross, a melancholic smile gracing his lips. "I knew you would eventually unravel it," Mastersonson conceded. "You're too proficient at your work. That's precisely why Blake desired your involvement, truly. He believed if he could sway you, if he could persuade you to adopt his perspective,
he would succeed. "Why?" Cross demanded, his voice laced with the sting of betrayal. "Why would you do this?" "Because Blake is correct," Masterson replied simply. "The system is flawed. The government has become corrupt at every stratum. Blake was attempting to rectify it by operating outside the conventional system, by establishing alternative power structures capable of holding individuals accountable." "By trafficking women?" I interjected, stepping forward. "By murdering innocent people like my daughter?" Masterson regarded me with something that nearly resembled pity. "Tessa was collateral damage. Yes, that is tragic. However, Blake's operations rescued hundreds of individuals. The intelligence he amassed prevented terrorist attacks. The funds he moved financed operations that safeguarded Americans." "Sometimes, individual lives must be sacrificed for the greater good." Cross rose to his feet. "You are under arrest for conspiracy, obstruction of justice, and murder. You have the right to remain silent." But Masterson wasn't finished speaking. As his rights were being read, he smiled again. "Do you truly believe arresting me will end this?" he questioned. "Blake has operatives everywhere, within the FBI, the CIA, the NSA. We are not merely an organization. We are an ideology. And ideologies do not perish simply because one person is incarcerated." Over the subsequent week, the full extent of Blake's network came to light. Federal agents, local police, judges, prosecutors, all were implicated in the conspiracy, each believing they were serving a higher purpose. Cross collaborated with internal affairs to identify and apprehend them. It was a rectification that reverberated through the entire federal system. Yet there was another revelation, something that emerged from Masterson's communications with Blake. Blake had been orchestrating something further, something intended to unfold regardless of his arrest. As the encrypted messages called it, referred to a synchronized series of actions designed to eradicate every witness, every shred of evidence, and every individual who could testify against Blake's network. The operation was slated to commence after Blake's trial, but the discovery of the mole had accelerated the timetable. Cross convened an emergency meeting with the FBI task force. "We need to relocate everyone," he declared. "All the witnesses, all the agents working on this case. Everyone. We must assume that Blake's network will attempt coordinated violence." That's when the violence erupted. An FBI safe house in Portland came under attack. Agents returned fire, and 3 of Blake's operatives were killed before they could breach the building. A courthouse in Tacoma received a bomb threat. A federal building in Seattle was evacuated after a suspicious package was found. It was a calculated, intentional pandemonium meant to overwhelm law enforcement and afford Blake's people an opportunity to complete their mission. Adrian, still recuperating in the hospital, was transferred to a secure federal facility. Giselle was moved to a different location with an expanded security detail. Quinn was relocated to a downtown federal building where she benefited from multiple layers of security. And then, amidst the turmoil, something unexpected occurred. Detective Oliver, the corrupt officer who had been arrested weeks prior, requested a meeting with Cross. Oliver, held in federal prison awaiting trial, sought to make a deal. Cross brought me with him to the visitation room. "I'm getting out," Oliver stated once we were seated. "Blake's people are breaking me out. They want me to eliminate certain witnesses, certain evidence, but I'm not going to do it." "Why should we believe you?" Cross inquired. "Because Blake is deranged," Oliver responded. "Because I've been observing him and I've realized he's not trying to fix the system. He's trying to dismantle it. He's trying to instigate such complete chaos that the government collapses. And when it collapses, he and individuals like him can reconstruct it in their own image. That's not justice. That's tyranny." Oliver paused to take a breath. "I'll testify. I'll divulge everything about Blake's network, names, locations, operations, everything. I'll help you dismantle this, but in return, I want protection. I want witness protection for myself and my family." Cross glanced at me. I nodded. "We'll make the deal," Cross affirmed. Over the subsequent 72 hours, Oliver provided information that proved absolutely devastating to Blake's operation. He identified 17 federal agents who were part of the conspiracy. He disclosed the locations of 3 clandestine facilities where Blake's organization was conducting unauthorized intelligence operations. He furnished financial records revealing billions of dollars flowing through untraceable accounts. But most crucially, Oliver unveiled that Blake had devised something even more sinister than Operation Cleansing. Blake had been colluding with a foreign intelligence service. He had been purveying classified information. He had been supplying operational details to individuals who had utilized that information to harm American soldiers, American operatives, and American interests. Blake was not striving to save America. He was attempting to sell it. The trial spanned 8 weeks. 8 weeks of testimony, evidence, cross-examinations, and revelations that stunned the entire nation. Blake remained in the courtroom every single day, his expression unwavering, as if he were merely an observer of events befalling someone else entirely. I testified for 3 consecutive days. I was meticulously cross-examined about everything: the wire recordings, the conversations with Victor, the trap we had set in the parking garage. Blake's defense attorney relentlessly attempted to discredit me, asserting that I was a grieving father seeking vengeance, that my testimony was prejudiced and unreliable. But the evidence spoke far louder than any argument. Giselle testified next. When she entered the courtroom, a profound silence enveloped the entire room. She appeared fragile, as though a strong gust of wind could shatter her. Yet, as she began recounting her relationship with Blake, discussing the money and the threats, her voice grew steady and strong. She described how Blake had manipulated her as a pawn, how he had threatened her family, and how he had ultimately caused her daughter's death. "I made terrible choices," Giselle confessed, looking directly at Blake. "I prioritized money over my daughter's safety. I chose fear over truth, and I must live with that forever." But Harrison Blake deliberately chose to murder an innocent woman, and he did so not out of passion or despair, but out of cold-hearted calculation. That is evil. That is the very definition of evil. Detective Oliver also testified. He detailed his corruption, his complicity in Tessa's cover-up, and his years of accepting illicit gains from Blake's organization. He named names. He provided dates and amounts. He painted a portrait of such pervasive, systemic corruption that it seemed inconceivable Blake had managed to operate for so long without detection. And then cross-presented the evidence concerning Blake's dealings with foreign intelligence services. Classified documents demonstrating that Blake had sold information directly leading to the deaths of 17 American operatives. Intelligence revealing that Blake had been collaborating with a Russian intelligence agency to destabilize American institutions. Financial records proving that Blake had been paid over $40 million for his treachery. The courtroom erupted. Reporters scrambled for the doors. The judge called for order. Blake was convicted on all counts: murder, conspiracy, treason, money laundering, human trafficking, obstruction of justice, and espionage. The judge sentenced him to life without parole, plus an additional 150 years. "This court finds that your crimes are among the most severe and heinous ever brought before it," Judge Nathaniel Cross declared. Yes, the same judge who had presided over the case.
"You have betrayed your country, murdered innocent citizens, and corrupted the very institutions intended to protect them. You will spend the remainder of your natural life in federal prison, and you will have ample opportunity to reflect on your actions." Blake was led away in handcuffs. As he passed me, he smiled, that same predatory smile, and whispered something so softly that only I could hear. "This isn't over, Mason. My people are everywhere. You'll never be safe." But I was no longer afraid, for Blake was broken. His network was dismantled. His conspiracy had been exposed. Yes, there would undoubtedly be others. Indeed, there would consistently be individuals like Blake aiming to corrupt the established order.
However, this particular individual, this solitary conspiracy, had been dismantled. The legal proceedings concluded on a Friday afternoon. As we emerged from the courthouse, the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the city skyline with hues of gold and crimson. Adrian, still moving gingerly from his wounds but wearing a smile, awaited me outside. Harper and her family were also present, as was Giselle. Giselle stood alone, emanating a sense of profound disorientation that truly pained me. I approached her directly. "Thank you," I stated, "for returning, for providing testimony, for demonstrating such courage when evasion would have been simpler." Giselle regarded me, her eyes brimming with unshed tears. "I did it for Tessa," she confided, "but I also did it for myself. I needed to cease my flight. I needed to overcome my fear." We stood together in silence for a moment, two individuals inextricably linked by sorrow and the memory of a daughter. Both of us had faltered in distinct ways. Then Giselle departed, and I understood that our paths would likely never cross again. And that was perfectly acceptable. Certain individuals enter our lives for a specific purpose, and once that purpose is fulfilled, they move on. Adrian placed a hand on my shoulder. "You achieved it," he remarked. "You apprehended him." "We achieved it," I corrected, encompassing all of us. Giselle, Quinn, Oliver, Cross, you. We accomplished this together. That evening, I visited Tessa's grave for the very first time since her funeral service. I brought Rex along, and we sat there as the sun vanished beneath the horizon. I shed no tears, I offered no prayers. I simply sat and conversed with my daughter. "It is finished," I communicated to her. "The man responsible for your death will spend the remainder of his life incarcerated. The network that shielded him has been eradicated. The individuals who concealed his actions have been apprehended. I cannot restore you. I cannot undo what transpired. But I can ensure that what happened to you held significance. I can ensure that your death ultimately led to justice." Rex rested his head on my lap, instinctively sensing my melancholy even in the encroaching darkness. "I am going to be all right," I whispered. "I will heal, and I will honor your memory by leading the life you would have wished for me, a life replete with purpose, meaning, and inner tranquility." The following morning, I awoke in my apartment with Rex peacefully sleeping at the foot of my bed. Sunlight streamed through the window, and for the first time in many months, I perceived a glimmer of hope. My phone vibrated, a text message from Cross. "Blake's appeal was denied. He will die in prison. It's truly over." I glanced at Rex and smiled. It was indeed over. Not the healing process, which would span years, not the grief, which would never entirely dissipate, but the pursuit was concluded. The nightmare had ended. Justice had been served. Before concluding, I wish to pose a question to you. This narrative, this compelling journey of Mason seeking retribution, safeguarding his kin, and confronting the inherent corruption within institutions designed to protect us, what resonance did it hold for you? From where are you currently watching? Please share your city or country in the comments below. We deeply value connecting with our community. And here's what I need from you, our audience. What kind of narratives would you like us to present next? Are you yearning for more tales of betrayal where justice emerges through bravery and veracity? Do you desire revenge sagas where the broken discover their inner strength? Are you seeking family dramas with astonishing plot twists that will undeniably keep you on the edge of your seat? Do you crave military action thrillers, stories exploring corruption and redemption, or epic accounts of deserved comeuppance and karmic retribution? Your feedback is invaluable. Comment below and articulate precisely what truly resonates with you. Share the emotions you experienced while engaging with this story. Tell us which moment proved most shocking. Indicate whether you believed in Mason's challenging journey. Hit that like button if this story powerfully reminded you that justice, though often slow in its arrival, can ultimately prevail. Subscribe if you desire more enthralling stories of betrayal, vengeance, and emotional triumph like this one. Enable notifications to ensure you never miss our next thrilling installment.
Because next time, we are poised to bring you a narrative even more breathtaking, more intricately woven, and utterly unforgettable. We are committed to delivering the most authentic, emotionally raw, and cinematically crafted stories available on YouTube. Stories that evoke genuine feeling. Stories that linger in your mind long after the video concludes. Stories of genuine human struggle, tangible consequences, and undeniable justice. Thank you for being an integral part of Mason's journey. Thank you for remaining with us until the very end. Thank you for believing in stories that profoundly matter. We eagerly anticipate seeing you in the next chapter.